Thanks very much, Will. Games Aid, brilliant as well. I just want to echo that. And really interesting. I think there's quite a lot of things we can do in VR to help people as well. I've heard a number of different things are happening, so that's something pretty cool to think about. So what I want to do today is just talk about our current thinking. So who am I? I guess I'll tell you who I am. Who am I? Dave Ranyard. I run Sony's London studio. I've been there since 2000. I started out as a menus programmer there and very slowly worked my way up. We've been working on Morpheus for a couple of years now. So today I just want to take you through some of our current thinking. Well, I'll just take you through that. We've done let me just tell you, here's some things we've done previously. So we've done things like iPet, SingStar, Wonderbook. We've done some more gritty things as well, like The Getaway. We used to make a football game called This Is Football about 12 years ago. But we've done a lot of work in motion gaming and also in augmented reality. And so actually for us as a studio, moving from augmented reality into virtual reality wasn't such a big leap, and I'm sure many of you here are aware. You know, some of the similar like technical challenges and so on. And so we've got expertise in that. Yeah, so we've been working on Morpheus for a couple of years now, and as part of the announcements from Sony, we've made a couple of demos that have been out there. So just this time last year when Sony expressed interest in VR and announced the prototype Morpheus, we had a demo called The Deep, where you go down deep sea diving and meet some interesting creatures. And we'll see a bit more of that in a minute. And then at E3 last year, we also had a demo of, called VR Luge, where you get to do some street luge. So that's kind of what we've put out there so far. And today I just want to talk a little bit about some of the thinking that we've got around some of the other work we're going to be showing later this year. So, I mean, maybe this is a silly question for a VR conference, but anyway, what is VR? Okay, well, what it isn't, traditional gaming and movies and so on is a window onto another world, from our perspective, I guess. And so that's always giving you some kind of barrier, you know, even if you're playing a first-person shooter game, it's still a window, you're still sitting on the couch looking at the rest of your room, looking at this window. In games and movies, typically we're kind of being empathic with a character. We're not the character in there. So this is Harold Lloyd hanging off a clock. And, you know, we are worried about him, but not because it's us, because it's somebody that we have sympathy with and we've built up a relationship with from watching a movie, again, through this window on the world. Whereas VR is more like, I found this, I thought this was a really cool picture, but, you know, your head is where the camera is, right? So it's just different, you know, you're actually there, you can look around, and it's different to this window on the world, and so you get this kind of view. So I'm just going to show a video now of The Deep. I have shown this video before, so apologies to anybody who's seen it in advance. I think Katie, who's at the back with Smash Hit Thunder, has seen it about 4 times now, so sorry, Katie. Anyway, but this sums up my own experience of VR. This is from about a year ago, and hopefully it'll just sort of set the scene a little bit.
Okay, here we go. Going down. Next stop, basement level. Hey, I think I have something big down there with you. Have you seen anything? No! Ah! Oh, God, it's going to take that long. Listen, have you ever been affected? Oh my God. Okay. On the shower. Oh.
Let me, How did you find that?
Ooh, my heart's beating. Woo, when it suddenly comes and actually your defences are taken away. That is the real.
You feel pretty vulnerable.
Scary.
So that's my mum. You may now think I'm an evil person. Anyway, she wasn't scared of sharks until then, and the therapy's doing very well, actually. No, in all seriousness though, I mean, you know, going back to Will's points at the beginning about the Viewmaster, that's my mum, right? She's not a video gamer or a tech person, but she really got something out of that. It was, you know, it was a fundamental behaviour that came out of her. She was scared of a shark attacking her. And also she was doing something, she's never going to do that. right? My mum is now 70 or something, and she's never going to go deep sea diving with sharks now. So she got an experience that she's never going to get. So, you know, for me, that was, it showed absolutely the value of all the work we're doing in VR. Okay, so I just want to touch a little bit on this. This is something we've been talking about in our studio. What is presence? So presence is this idea of actually feeling like you are somewhere. There's a lot of technical challenges to overcome, like latency, frame rate, etc., pixel persistence, all these things. I'm not really going to go into any of the technical stuff, but it's the idea of actually being somewhere, which is pretty cool, and that's something that, you know, everyone's been striving for, and we feel like we've finally got there. But this is a dentist waiting room, right? So we could achieve presence with, okay, there's maybe a narrative around this in that you're a bit scared about having a filling, but it's probably one of the more mundane places that we come across in life. So you could achieve presence in something without any narrative and without any interaction. And so from that perspective, maybe it's more like the test card. So, you know, you could run the test card on an HD TV and you could guarantee that pixel perfect it is that there's no kind of experience there. And so what we're wanting to do is layer onto presence, experience and narrative and so on. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So we're talking about presence as a baseline, you know, and that's something that I guess, you know, VR's been not being able to get that presence because of latency or whatever has perhaps held it back in the past. But now we can achieve that because the technology's converged to be able to make headsets that do it. But then for us, from a creative perspective, it's about layers of interaction and engaging narrative. And that's something that we're now, if you put all those together, we're calling it true immersion, something that you really, really feel like physically and emotionally you're engaged with this experience. So I'm going to just quickly go through 4 different components of like game development really and what the impacts of VR are. Starting with art. So art's a very different way to look at the world. So, you know, a typical first or third person game, it's got like this kind of corridor view, you know, and I mean, I think of it like if you go around the Universal Studios movie lot, you get this kind of disappointment that actually something that you thought was an amazing street scene in New York is some painted buildings and some fake perspective. And I feel like that's an analogy for if you just took a traditional game and kind of plonked yourself in VR, you'd see, oh, hang on, these doors are all too wide, and you know, it's not like as real as we need it to be. So from an art perspective, the guys need to rethink the pipeline and rethink how they author things. This is another one, you know, again, so the filming there, that's great, but look, it's just a load of nonsense over here. Where if you were in VR, you'd see all that. So you've got to re-author your pipelines and so on. And there's a whole bunch of different things. And actually, one of our studio are doing a talk at GDC next week just about art for VR. For example, you know, if a character is 5 meters away from you in a traditional game, there's a lot more pixels making up their face and their body and so on than there are in VR, where you know the fall-off rate is different and so on. Game design. So this is like probably the most exciting for us as a game studio because there's so many new challenges, and new challenges for design mean you know new ground to go and explore and create new experiences, and that's what designers are all about really. So this is something that we're getting very excited about. So I'm just going to show a couple of videos now from. So this is our Street Luge demo. So this guy's having fun, but basically, unfortunately we don't have it here, which is a shame. You lie down on a beanbag, there's no controller, you just tilt your body left and right like this to steer. So it's pure Morpheus control, pure VR control, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to show you a video of a very early prototype of this. Okay, so you get the idea of that. This is so that's like a totally new mechanic for us. But even within an experience like this, so we also found that crashing was really quite uncomfortable, which I guess it is in the real world as well, if you ever go and play with traffic. So we then had to do other mechanics like what do we do when we collide? So we tried a few, there's a few being shown on screen here. In the end, we actually went for something where we allow you to pass through. We slow you down, so you see a down arrow and your speed going down as a penalty, but we go for this kind of vertex shading. Because we found that that was the best, to actually make it a great experience, that was our best solution to that. I'm sure there might be others as well. You know, I mean, we probably did about 3 months' work on this to get it all working. But I guess that just sort of gives you an example of some new game mechanics that we wouldn't have done with a DualShock controller or a Move controller or anything like that. So a whole new world again for us with creating new game mechanics. So now I want to talk about the player, and two aspects of this really. The first is how the player interacts with the world, and then how the player interacts with other characters. So first of all, how the player interacts with the world. So I've got a picture here of holding a torch. We've had torches in games, it's pretty cool, you know, you can kind of like the scene. In VR it's really powerful, you know, because it helps you feel like, yeah, you're actually holding this thing and you're pointing it around. It's very one-to-one, and that's really nice. But how does it feel to pick up something else and actually interact with it? I mean, the closer you can get to one-to-one interaction, the closer you increase the sense of true immersion that I talked about at the top. That's the kind of the obvious one, isn't it? Because a lot of games do have guns in. So holding a gun in VR and actually, you know, really taking part feels very, very natural from a gaming perspective. And then how the player interacts with other characters, and this is something we've done quite a bit of work on as well. And I think that this is where we, you know, with if you like, the Deep and Luge for us felt like the first wave of experiences where we're really eliciting one emotion. So with the shark memo, it's fear, right? You see my mum getting scared. And with VR Luge, it's about adrenaline. You're close to the ground, you've got the danger of this traffic coming. So, but in terms of enjoying an experience or really getting immersed, I think how you interact with characters can give you a lot more subtle emotion. So, how does it feel to have a character looking at you, smiling, following you around? If you move about like this, actually following you, that's actually very powerful. And this is, I mean, the reason this is in black and white and like silent movies is because I often use the analogy of VR coming to games now is like when audio came to movies. You know, it's a big disruptive innovation. And also, some of the things like character interaction, it's a bit like when the close-up came into movies. You know, suddenly you could really get a lot of emotion out of that face. But I guess what we're talking about is you've got an NPC, a non-playable character in a game, and their interactions with you, and the fact that they're totally aware of where you are. They might know that you're sitting down or standing up. They might know that you're kneeling down. And actually that gives you the ingredients for some really powerful emotional context for an experience. What if that look is a bit more sinister? You know, it could be somebody not smiling at you like Mary Pickford in that picture before, but somebody who's quite angry with you or is about to kill you with a death ray. How does it feel for a character to pass something to you? They could pass you a note, they could pass you a photograph. That's actually very powerful as well, you know, and it's starting to get communication between characters. You could give something to another character as well. You know, you might find a photograph, pass it to them. You could pick up a book, look at it, all kinds of things. And then how does it feel to have a gun pointed at your head? Because it's, you know, in a normal video game, it's kind of, okay, you get guns around. But when you're in VR, it's actually quite scary. One of the things we found when we made the Deep, and we took it to Gamescom in Germany last year, was the German rating board gave it a 12 on a TV screen and a 16 in the headset, because they said fundamentally it was more powerful in the headset. So all these things, you know, we feel like it's more powerful than it would be. You know, going back to that slide with the window on the world at the top. And then, how does it feel to have a gun pointed really close to your head? It's not very pleasant. But, you know, this is starting to get into really powerful building blocks for narrative. And then, I won't say too much on this, but narrative, the player is a character in the story. You know, so typically in a movie and all third-person games, you're empathising with a character, and you do empathise with them, and you kind of don't, you know, you want to save them. I mean, my personal favourite video game is Sonic the Hedgehog, and I love Sonic, and I empathise with him when I'm jumping around, you know, or in more serious titles like Assassin's Creed or something, you empathise with the character. But in VR, you are the character. There are some really cool things out there, actually, you know, like Lucky's Tale, where you are doing that traditional thing of empathising with the character and controlling them. But in VR, there's such an opportunity for you to actually be part of the story. That's something we should really build on. So I've got this picture here. Nice one. But basically, this lady's not going to save herself. The player has to be the hero, go and play and save her. So for us, I mean, I know VR has been around for a long time. We've got a lot of advocates of VR in the room who've been working on it a long time. But for us as a game studio, it's a new medium. There's new building blocks for us to tell stories and create experiences. So there we are, new medium. So going back to this little equation I had at the top, so we're getting close to achieving presence. We feel like we've nailed that. That's really cool. But now for us, it's about layering on these different interactions with characters and with the world, and then supplying an engaging narrative. And that's where you get to kind of true immersion, where you really, really get sucked in physically and emotionally into an experience. So by putting all these together, we get a great experience. We've got a load of new skills. I couldn't really think of a great line for this one. We've got a load of new skills to learn. Hopefully it won't be too scary. And then that's the end. So thank you very much for listening to me. Like I say, it's just a bit of our current thinking at London studio.
But did anyone have a question? As I asked people to come up with questions, I think I should. Did anyone have a question for Dave? It means you've given the. Ah, brilliant. The chap in the. Have we got a person roaming with the stick mic, or have I been presumped? There it is. Okay, you shout for now. Oh no, a mic's coming. A mic's coming. There's a chap. Yeah. Oh, we'll go to you next.
I always cut in lines. So. The question is about focusing. There was a mention about it, but if anyone has noticed, then when you are focusing on something on the close range, then the things on the distant range actually also kind of displace in terms of vision. Does that mean that some kind of pupil tracking, iris tracking is needed, or have you done any research on that? Thank you.
It's a great question. I personally haven't done any research on iris tracking. I think there will be more and more layers of technology that will improve VR over the next coming years. So I mean, there have been, various people have done eye tracking, for example. The art stuff I was talking about, and as you say, the focus. I think there's still loads to learn there. And our assistant art director, Jason Hickey's talking at GDC, so he's done a great piece of work actually on whether or not, for example, can you actually use normal maps at a distance, because if you know the player's never going to get that close, and so on. So it still feels like early days, and people are getting wins and sharing that experience, and I think something like that is quite is fascinating. I mean, somebody else was talking last night about having something that basically changes your inner, treats your inner ear to make you feel like you're going upside down or whatever. And so I do think there's going to be lots of other complementary technologies that come along to enhance the experience.
And it would be very unfair. Oh, you've already got a microphone. Fantastic. Yeah, last question. Oh, a microphone that doesn't work.
It's okay, I'll shout. So we've got like Samsung VR headset imminently coming out. What's going on with Sony and Morpheus? When we like to see it 5 years down the line?
It's a brilliant question which I'm not going to answer. Because actually they've actually kidnapped my children to make sure that I don't answer that question. So no, they haven't. But unfortunately I can't take the question. Well, Clearly, I mean, I'm doing a lot of work on it. I'm loving working on VR. It's very exciting. I can't answer that question.
Worth a try, eh?
Yeah, it's always worth a try.
Well, thank you so much, Dave.
All right, thank you.